Ever wanted to know how Ireland was formed? Well, so do I. So let's take a look at the mythological beginning of the Emerald Isles. So, shocker, the mythology might not be totally accurate, but it's pretty cool. So let's begin with Lebor Gabala Erin, or as it's more commonly known as the Book of Invasions. Today we'll be taking a crash course of the many times Ireland has been invaded. So the book doesn't actually go through every single time Ireland has been invaded, because this video would be way too long if it did. It actually only goes through 6 invasions from the mythological founding of Ireland. That might not have really happened. Okay, they obviously didn't happen, but it's fun to look at it. So the book literally just begins with Genesis from the Bible. I wonder who put that there. But the story really begins with Keser, the canonical daughter of Noah, with the Ark, who decided maybe he should have a failsafe, and sent Keser with a fleet as far west as they could go. They eventually hit the shores of Ireland, where there was a shipwreck which killed most of the crew, leaving only Keser, 49 other women, and 3 men. 2 of whom die and the other turns into a salmon because we need someone to tell the story, and the rest of them get wiped out by the flood, since, it turned out it could actually reach Ireland. Then, about 300 years later, another group arrives who colonized Ireland and see some wacky stuff like spontaneous lake bursts. They then fight the Fomorians, who are just these, demon things? They're not quite humans, they're like fae, I guess. Nobody really knows how they got there or why they're there. They're just around. So they do battle, and then suddenly everybody dies of a plague within a week, except for yet another fishy transformation. This is becoming a theme, isn't it? Another 30 years, and another boat sailed by. This one piloted by a man named Nemid, who's the only surviving ship after a very obvious hubris test brought down the rest of the fleet. But this ship colonizes Ireland for the 3rd time, doing pretty well. Nemid even managed to kill 2 of the Fomorian kings, but dies of the plague, leaving the rest of the colonizers to be enslaved by the Fomorians. They eventually revolt and kill one of the kings, but the feared Mork, the backup king, kills them all, except for 30 odd men who ran away to Greece and get enslaved. Wow, and people say the Irish are lucky. A few centuries later, those Irish people came back, now known as the Fir Bolg, and lived peacefully until it's time for some deities. Not gods. The definitely not gods of the Tuatha Dé Danann. So, with a pretty metal intro rolling in on a literal thunderstorm, they fight the Fir Bolg and win. After a fight between Nuada and the Ordri Uka Mac Era, how do you pronounce that? I don't know. Anyway, that guy, who loses after lobbing off Nuada's arm. This means Nuada can't be Ordri, and this guy Bress takes charge. Until Nuada returns with a really cool silver hand, with an even cooler name to boot, Argadlov, which means silver-handed. Now, it's time to fight the Fomorians again, but with half of the Tuatha Dé Danann and half Fomorian all-around cool guy Lou on their side this time. During the epic battle, Nuala is killed by Balor, the big bad of the Fomorians, who Lou then promptly kills with a sling, defeating the Fomorians once and for all. So the Tuatha live on as the great leaders of Ireland, until Lou gets stabbed 30 years later. Anyway, the last invasion of Ireland is the actual Irish, the people who we Irish are actually descended from. Their bard manages to get them the land despite the Tuatha Dé Danann's best efforts. They do some fighting, have some adventures, the usual invading stuff, fight off a few plagues. Anyway, at this time, Ireland was run by the 3 Ordri of the Tuatha Dé Danann, who were married to the 3 earth goddesses, Banov, Eru, and Fola. You may have noticed that Eru sounds a lot like Era, the Irish for the actual island of Ireland, and that's because each goddess wanted the island named after them. Now, time to point out a plot hole. Banov was supposedly older than Noah and was just chilling on a mountain when the whole flood thing happened, but since she was part of the Tuatha Dé Danann, how was she there before the first invasion, but only arrived by the 4th? Well, Christianization! That whole first invasion was just the Christian rewrite of this story with the 3 Ardri and the 3 goddesses, or in the first invasion, the 3 male survivors and their 3 main wives. This is all just to prove that the Tuatha Dé Danann were in fact not gods. Anyway, long story short, Banov is Keser. Now, back to the story. The Tuatha Dé Danann were having none of these Irish people moving in, and so they blocked off the Irish people with a giant magical storm. But then, the aforementioned poet that got them on the island in the first place gave a really nice poem to Ireland herself, asking if they could live there. When she complied, the Tuatha Dé Danann decided they were beat, and they split the land between the Irish. The Irish could have the overworld, and the Tuatha would take the other world. And that's it. The 6 invasions of Ireland that definitely happened, according to the Book of Invasions. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. This has been a crash course in Irish mythology.